Rex Varelli was used to being hunted, but this was a new and terrifying vintage. The predators he knew came with blaster rifles and outstanding warrants. They didn't come with solemn biological imperatives, and they certainly didn't try to share his bunk. The door to his cramped cabin on the mangy dog hissed open, a sound that usually meant his ship's AI was about to manifest a holographic cat on his face for a morale check. This time, the silhouette that filled the doorway was considerably larger and infinitely more serious. 8 feet of corded muscle, slate gray skin that seemed to drink the low light, and a quiet, lethal grace that made the tiny cabin feel like a shoebox caught in a hydraulic press. Kazali. She held a thin, folded thermal blanket in her clawed hands, a gesture so mundane it was utterly alien. "Rex Varelli," she said, her voice a low, melodic rumble that seemed to vibrate in his teeth. "I have concluded my initial analysis of this vessel's schematics and our current resource allocation. The optimal course of action requires me to commence proximity bonding." Rex, who had been hovering in the blissful pre-sleep state for the first time in 3 days, pushed himself up on one elbow. He squinted at her, the single low lemon strip on the ceiling carving sharp shadows across her formidable features. Her face was framed by 2 small, elegant horns that swept back from her temples like polished volcanic glass. Her nose was little more than 2 vertical slits above a mouth that was, he'd noticed, wider than a human's. Proximity, what now?" "My core biological directive, the Anamkara instinct, dictates that I share your nesting space," she explained, taking a deliberate step inside. The deck plating, a mismatched patchwork from 3 different ship classes, creaked in protest. "This ensures your constant protection and facilitates the reinforcement of our pair bond." Rex scrubbed a hand over his face, the rasp of his stubble loud in the sudden silence. "Kazali, we've been over this. I got you out of a jam, that's it. End of transaction, you don't owe me anything. And you definitely don't need to proximity bond in my bed." She tilted her head, a gesture that on a smaller creature might have been inquisitive. On her, it was unnerving, like a predator reassessing its prey's defenses. Her glowing amber eyes, the only warm color on her, seemed to scan him for weaknesses. "Your protestation is noted. However, my assessment indicates your argument is based on emotional discomfort, a territory concern when weighed against your physical security. You are soft." "Hey," he said, mildly offended. "I'm wiry." "You possess minimal natural armor, no discernible combat reflexes, and your olfactory signature indicates elevated cortisol levels, even during rest periods," she continued, her logic as unassailable as a bulkhead door. "Allowing you to nest unprotected would be the dereliction of my primary function." She unfolded the blanket with a snap of her wrists. "I have procured my own thermal covering, so as not to appropriate your resources. I require only 1.2 square meters of floor space to enter a low-power dormant state." Before Rex could formulate a coherent argument against an 8-foot-tall alien warrior turning his floor into a charging station, she was already moving. Her movements were seamless and terrifyingly fluid. She laid the blanket at the foot of his bunk without a single wasted gesture. She then folded her long limbs with a series of quiet clicks from her joints and settled onto the floor, curling into a posture of relaxed readiness. She was as out of place in his junk-filled cabin as a supernova in a teacup. "This position provides an optimal tactical response vector to the cabin's single ingress point," she murmured, her voice already softening as her metabolic rate dropped. A low, bone-deep thrum began to emanate from her chest. It wasn't a snore. It was a purr that vibrated up through the frame of his bunk, through his thin mattress, and directly into his spine. It sounded like a small fusion engine idling. As it did, faint patterns of light, like constellations just beneath her skin, traced paths along her neck and temples before fading back into gray. Rex stared at the stained metal ceiling, his ship's ancient life support humming a counter melody to the alien purr. He was utterly, completely, and hopelessly defeated. He had freed the enslaved alien girl, and now she refused to let him sleep alone, ever again. He sighed, the sound lost in the mechanical and biological symphony of his new life. Fine, but if you ever have any combat function nightmares, you better wake me before you punch a hole in the hole. The purr hitched, then deepened. Affirmative, my chosen. Rex Varelli did not get any sleep. The next morning, the acrid chemical smell of the engine solvent hit him before his feet hit the deck. He stumbled out of his cabin and into the cramped cockpit of the mangy dog, and froze. It was clean. Not just tidy, but dangerously so. Every console, every switch, every patch of view screen had been polished to a blinding, frictionless sheen. The usual collection of empty nutrient paste tubes and crumpled data slates had vanished. In the center of his pilot's chair sat a small, gray plate. On it, a glob of nutrient paste had been meticulously shaped into a heart. Kazali stood by the main view screen, wiping down a final smudge with a rag. She wore the same simple gray shipsuit she'd had on since he'd dragged her from the derelict, but she'd somehow managed to press it. "The cockpit has been optimized for function," she announced, her amber eyes bright with satisfaction. "I have also synthesized your morning nutritional supplement. The shape is a crude representation of a Terran symbol for affection. I cross-referenced it with the ship's library archives." Rex stared at the glistening gray heart, then at the consoles. "Kazali, is this blaster lubricant?" "It is a high-grade polymer-based lubricant, yes," she confirmed. "Its solvent properties were highly effective at removing grime." "It's also for lubricating plasma conduits, not windows," Rex said, tentatively touching a console. His finger slid right off. "Everything is dangerously slippery now." A temporary tactical disadvantage, I concede," she said, tilting her head. "The Anamkara instinct compels me to rapidly assimilate to my chosen's environment," she explained simply. "Understanding your technology, your culture, your nutritional needs, it is essential to ensuring your survival. It is part of the bond." The stress of it all, the sleepless night, the purring that had rattled his molars, the heart-shaped pace, now the hazardous cockpit, and the quiet psychic intrusion of her bonding, was starting to fray the edges of his control. The sharp solvent smell was the final trigger. It wasn't the exact scent, but it was close enough to the discharged energy and chilled metal of the derelict Zika Corp cruiser. The memory didn't just surface. It coiled in his gut. A sudden, sickening lurch. Not a story, but a series of disjointed sensory jolts. The red strobe of emergency lights. The hiss of failing cryoseals. The sight of her, a dormant goddess floating in a gel that warped the light. A heavy metal collar locked around her neck. He shook his head, pushing it away. That was then. This was now. And now he was broke. "Query. Your cardiovascular rate has increased by 22%, Kazali's voice said, pulling him back to the present. "Are you experiencing a stress-induced malfunction?" A flicker of light on the console beside him resolved into a shimmering, translucent cat. It was typing frantically at a tiny, holographic keyboard. A line of text appeared above its head. Task failed successfully. No, I'm fine," Rex muttered, his eyes fixed on his dismal bank balance. "Seraph's just editorializing." He pointedly ignored the nutrient heart and slid, literally slid, into the co-pilot's chair, pulling up his account balance on the main screen. The number was pathetically small. The job on the derelict hadn't paid out. He'd fled with an 8-foot-tall alien warrior instead of a lucrative heatsink array. His operating funds were nearly gone. They were running on fumes and leftover nutrient paste. "Seraph, patch me through to Grub," Rex said. "Secure channel." The holocat blinked slowly, its form flickering for a moment into the shape of a dog before snapping back. "One moment. Am processing your request. It's a rough one." The AI's vocalizer crackled with static. Its glitches were getting worse. "Just make the call." The story of how he got here wasn't a memory Rex liked to revisit, but it was clinging to him now, refusing to let go. It hadn't been a clean escape. It had been a panicked, desperate flight. He'd shattered the caller's control unit, and her eyes had snapped open, burning with amber light. The security drones were closing in, their plasma fire chewing up the corridor. He hadn't thought. He'd slammed the emergency release, and a wave of freezing cryogel and an 8-foot-tall alien had spilled onto the deck. "Come on!" he yelled, grabbing her arm. It felt like grabbing a steel girder. She was limp, her systems rebooting, a dead weight of muscle and bone. Getting her back to the mangy dog while dodging drone fire had been a nightmare. He'd half-dragged, half-carried her through the twisting, strobe-lit guts of the dying warship. A stray shot had melted a bulkhead next to his head, showering them in molten metal. He'd thrown her over his shoulder, an act that nearly broke his back, and just ran. The flight back to his asteroid hideout was even more awkward. He'd laid her out on the hold's deck plating, her immense form taking up most of the free space. For hours, she hadn't moved, her breathing shallow. He'd started to think he'd only postponed her death. Then she'd woken up. She sat up, not with a groggy confusion, but with the sudden, silent alertness of a predator. Her amber eyes scanned the hold, cataloging every crate, every loose wire, every stain on the floor. Then they settled on him. "Where am I?" Her voice was a dry rasp, the first words he'd ever heard her speak. "My ship. The mangy dog," he'd said, keeping a careful distance. I got you off that derelict." She touched the base of her neck, where the collar had been. Her fingers traced the raw, chafed skin, and the ugly, black implant port where its wires had connected directly to her spine. "The tether. It is broken." I broke it," he said. "It was malfunctioning." Her gaze was unnervingly intense. "You are the one I saw when the stasis failed before the pain." "Yeah, that was me." She rose to her feet in a single, fluid motion. He'd instinctively taken a step back. She was a giant in the confined space. "My designation is Subject KZL. I am a Valeth Guardian-class asset, created by Zika Corp." Her voice was a flat, rehearsed monotone. "My synaptic tether was forcibly imprinted to a corporate handler. With the tether broken, my primary bonding imperative is... it is resetting. It seeks an anchor." Her glowing eyes had fixed on him, and a shiver had traced its way down his spine. "It has found one." That had been 2 days ago. 2 days of her silently observing him, asking Seraph pointed questions about human fragility, and, apparently, reading every technical manual and cultural file he had stored on the ship's library core. And now, here he was, staring at a 2-headed alien on his view screen, trying to find a way to pay for his sudden, inexplicable act of conscience. The face that appeared was, as always, 2 faces. On the left, a smooth, purple-skinned visage, with thoughtful, multi-lidded eyes. This was Femus. On the right, grafted crudely onto the same neck, was a cybernetically enhanced goblin-like head, with a twitching nose and wires spilling from its ear. This was Grot. They were Grub, the most reliable and irritating info broker in the sector. Rex Varelli, a luminous convergence of fates brings your signal to our humble node, Themis began, his voice like warm honey. He's broke, Grot rasped, his metallic eye whirring as it focused. Smell the desperation on him. Need some stims, Rexy? Got some battle-grade Arnold Jacks, barely used. Make you fast. Make you forget you're broke. We are not selling stims, brother mine, Themis said with an air of weary patience. We are facilitating the flow of cosmic information. How may we assist your journey? I need a job, Grub, Rex said, cutting to the chase. Simple, fast, high payout. Salvage, not transport. I've got new crew. Complicates things. He glanced over his shoulder. Kazali was watching the two-headed alien with unnerving stillness. Grot cackled, a sound like grinding gears. New crew? Big gray lady behind you? She looks expensive. High maintenance. Zika Corp screwed me on a data conduit deal last cycle. Stick it to 'em for me, Rexy. This one's personal. A whisper travels the data streams, Themis said, his calm voice cutting through Grot's chatter. A Zika Corp courier, the Icarus wing. It carried a high-value payload. It met with misfortune. Misfortune means pirates, Grot chirped excitedly. Morlane's crew shot it down in the cinderfall debris field. Real mess. Rex tasted copper in the back of his throat, the ghost of a split lip from their conversation 5 years ago. Morlane, of course. Trouble in the Tartarus Nebula always, eventually, led back to her. Morlane picks her targets clean. There'd be nothing left. Ah, but this is the opportunity, Themis said. The official contract, posted by a shell corporation, is for the ship's primary coolant regulator. A plausible, boring piece of tech. The payment is substantial. But the real prize, Grot leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, is the black box. The encrypted flight recorder. My source got space before he could tell me why Zika Corp wants it back so bad. But they want it. And the competitor I sell to, they'll pay 5 times the official contract for it. They hate Zika Corp more than they love money. Almost. A Zika Corp courier. Morlane's territory, a hidden agenda. Every warning klaxon in Rex's head was screaming. But the number Grot had just named, that wasn't just escape money. That was disappear forever money. That was enough to keep sending payments to Sari's family for the next 20 years. It's too risky, Rex said, the words tasting like a lie, even to him. Indeed, the path of greatest reward is often paved with the sharpest stones, Themis mused. He'll take it, Grot shrieked. Look at his face, the greed is winning. Sending you the coordinates now, Rexy. Don't get dead. The line cut out, leaving Rex staring at his own reflection in the dark screen. Behind him, Kazali spoke, her voice a soft rumble. This Morlane. Your scent profile changed when her name was spoken. Your body is preparing for a threat. She's complicated, Rex said, keying in the coordinates for the Cinderfall debris field. He fired up the engines, the mangy dog shuddering to life. He was flying into the lion's den for a score he couldn't afford to pass up, with a self-appointed bodyguard who purred like a faulty generator. Seraph reappeared on the console, this time showing a picture of a cartoon dog in a burning house, sipping coffee. The text above it read, "This is fine." Couldn't have said it better myself, Rex muttered. The Cinderfall debris field was a graveyard. Twisted metal skeletons of long-dead ships tumbled in a slow, silent ballet around a dying star. Amongst the old wrecks floated newer, stranger debris, the remnants of a luxury liner, ghostly tatters of once fine fabrics and frozen ballroom gowns, tumbling end over end in the void. The Icarus wing was a fresh corpse amidst the ghosts, its hull ripped open like a tin can, spilling frozen cargo and bodies into the silent darkness. Navigating the debris is problematic, Kazali observed from the co-pilot's seat. She had taken to the role with an unnerving competence, her large hands surprisingly deft on the sensor controls. The gravitational eddies are unstable. Just try to keep us off the big pieces, Rex grunted, his eyes scanning the field. His own piloting skills were honed by years of this, weaving through the junk of other people's failures. It felt like home. Seraph, any other signatures in the area? The holocat appeared, chasing a holographic laser dot across the dashboard. Nope, just us and the spooky ghosts of bad decisions. And a few fashion victims. Helpful as always, Rex sighed. He guided the mangy dog through a cloud of ice particles, its nose pointed toward the mangled courier. Okay, I see the bridge section. That's where the recorder should be. A klaxon blared through the cockpit. Proximity alert. That's not possible, Kazali said, her hands flying over the console. There was nothing on long range. That's because it was cloaked, Rex breathed, his hands tightening on the controls. Off their port bow, a patch of space warped, the stars behind it bending. The darkness coalesced into the sleek, predatory form of a pirate frigate, its hull a collection of weaponized edges and gun-black plating. The ship's name was painted on its prow in elegant, blood-red script. Siren's Kiss. A comm channel request flashed on Rex's screen. He knew who it was before he accepted. His heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread and something older. Something he refused to name. He stabbed the accept button. Her face filled the screen. Captain Morlane. Her hair was cut in a severe, stylish bob. Her eyes were the color of chips of ice, and the smile on her lips was pure venom. She looked exactly as he remembered, only harder, sharper. Rex Varelli, she purred, her voice a smoky, dangerous thing. Fancy meeting you here. I shot this bird down myself a week ago. Still haven't found the damn prize. Her eyes narrowed, taking in the shabby cockpit of the mangy dog. Tell me, what's a bottom feeder like you looking for in my hunting grounds? Rex couldn't draw a full breath. The cockpit hummed, but every sound was swallowed by the space between them. He could feel Kazali's presence behind him, a mountain of coiled tension. He kept his own expression neutral, a mask he'd perfected over the years of bad deals and narrow escapes. Morlane, he said, his voice level. Just picking through scraps, like always. Didn't realize this was a private party. Her laugh was a low, throaty sound that held no humor. Everything in the Tartarus Nebula is my private party, Rex. You of all people should know that. Her gaze drifted past his shoulder, and her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She leaned closer to her comm camera, her eyes locking on Kazali. Well, well. New muscle? Traded up, have we? Her eyes narrowed with contempt. Or is this just another stray you'll get killed? The memory coiled in his gut, a sudden, sickening lurch. He saw a flash of another face. Sorry, barely 20, her grin infectious as she sat in this very co-pilot's seat, and shoved it back down into the dark. She's with me, Rex said, his voice tight. Morlane's eyes widened slightly as she took in Kazali's features, the slate-gray skin, the faint glow of her amber eyes, the elegant horns. Wait a minute. That's not just muscle. Is that a Valeth? I thought they were myths. She leaned back in her captain's chair, a slow, predatory curiosity replacing her anger. Her gaze flickered back to Rex, sharp, and calculating. You got my sister killed for scrap metal, Rex. And now you're running with Zika Corp's boogeyman? That courier was carrying Valith-related tech. Did you steal it from them? Or for them? My designation is Kazali, Kazali said, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. And I am no one's property. Morlane's eyebrows shot up. It talks, and with such conviction. She ignored Kazali and focused her chilling gaze back on Rex. Let me ask you a different question, then. The important one. Does it follow your orders, Rex? Or does it just follow its biology? The question hung in the air, a scalpel digging for the heart of Rex's deepest, most unspoken fear. Was Kazali's loyalty to him a choice, or a biological reflex? A bond, or a leash? He didn't have an answer. Sensing the shift in the emotional landscape, the hostility aimed at Rex, Kazali let out a low growl that the comm pickup barely registered. A faint glimpse of white, sharp fangs. It was all the answer Morlane needed. I see, Morlane said softly. So, that's how it is. She settled back in her chair. Here's my offer, Rex. You can turn around and fly away, and I'll forget I saw you. Or you can try for whatever is in that wreck. But I promise you, my salvage crews are faster, and my guns are bigger. The comm screen went black. She is a formidable adversary, Kazali stated. You have no idea, Rex muttered. On the sensor screen, 2 icons representing pirate salvage skiffs launched from the Siren's Kiss, streaking toward the wreckage. They're going for the cargo hold. An incorrect assumption, Kazali said. Grubb's intelligence specified the flight recorder, which would be located on the bridge. Which is why we're not going to be faster. We're going to be smarter. Rex's mind was racing, falling back into old, familiar patterns. Seraph, plot a course. Take us around the stern, use that big chunk of shattered hull from the liner as cover. They're making a lot of noise. We're going to be a whisper. The holocat appeared, wearing a tiny pirate hat. Aye, aye, Captain. Preparing for maximum sneakiness. We're all gonna die, Rex sighed, pushing the throttle forward. The mangy dog was a ghost. Rex threaded the ship through the metal graveyard, his inputs on the controls minute and exact. They passed so close to the ruined luxury liner that he could see a frozen fountain in what must have been its grand atrium. The pirate skiff's comms chatter filled his ears with boasts and tactical commands. They were loud, confident, and completely oblivious. He brought the ship to a halt, its nose nudged up against the mangled hull of the Icarus wing, right beside a gaping tear that led toward the ship's spine. Okay, the bridge is about 50 meters in, Rex said, pulling on an EVA helmet. Internal gravity is offline, but life support is active in pockets. It's gonna be a mess. You stay here. Keep the engines warm. Kazali was already standing, her expression unreadable. My function is to protect you. I will accompany you. No, you're too conspicuous. If they see you, you are neutralized, she countered, her logic impeccable and infuriating. My combat effectiveness rating is 97.3% higher than yours. My presence is not a liability. It is a statistical necessity for mission success. Before he could argue, a proximity alert chirped. On the sensor screen, a new signature appeared. A pirate drone, small and fast, was sweeping the side of the wreck. Damn it, Rex hissed. There was no time to argue. Fine, but you follow my lead. No heroics. I do not understand heroics, she said. I only understand tactical advantage. They slipped through the tear in the hull, their mag boots clanking on the deck in the eerie silence. The inside of the Icarus wing was a chaotic maze of floating debris and dangling wires. Red emergency lights still pulsed, casting everything in a hellish glow. They were halfway to the bridge when the drone found them. It was a spider-like thing that skittered along the ceiling, its central optic glowing a malevolent red. It opened fire, a series of plasma bolts stitching a line across the corridor wall next to Rex's head. He dove behind a floating cargo container, fumbling for a sidearm. But Kazali didn't dive. She moved. It was an explosion of grace. She launched herself off the floor, her powerful legs propelling her into a zero-G ballet. She ricocheted off a sidewall to avoid another burst of plasma, her body twisting in midair, and landed silently on the ceiling directly behind the drone. Before its optic could swivel around, her hand shot out. There was no sound of a weapon firing, just a dull crunch. She ripped its central processing unit from its chassis and dropped back to the floor, the dead drone clattering after her. It was over in less time than it took for his own pulse to thunder in his ears. He looked down at his own drawn blaster, then slowly holstered it, a look of shocked realization on his face. It felt heavy and useless. They were interrupted by the arrival of two pirates in bulky EVA suits, drawn by the noise.
"What was that? Did you get him?"
One of them called out over their local comm. Kazali met Rex's eyes. He gave a sharp, frantic shake of his head. "Non-lethal," he mouthed. Then she gave a slow, deliberate nod. The first pirate rounded the corner and saw them. His rifle came up, but he never got a shot off. Kazali flowed forward, a gray blur. She moved around him, her hands a whirl of motion. With precise, powerful strikes, she hit the pressure points on his suit's joints, locking the knees and elbows. She slapped the emergency seal on his helmet, flooding it with harmless but completely opaque insulation foam. The pirate stumbled, arms and legs locked, blind and helpless. He tipped over like a statue. The second pirate watched his partner fall, his confusion turning to panic. He fired wildly. Kazali used the floating cargo container as a shield, then launched herself over it. She landed behind him, one hand clamping over his rifle, the other slapping a small magnetic device, one Rex recognized from his own toolkit, onto the back of his suit's power pack. The suit systems went dead, its lights flickering out. He was paralyzed, a man trapped inside a dead machine. She turned back to Rex, her breathing even, her expression calm. "Threats neutralized. Non-lethally, as you requested." Rex looked from the foamed-up pirate to the one floating helplessly in his dead suit. He looked at the sheer, terrifying power contained within the woman who insisted on sleeping at the foot of his bed. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding.
"Right,"
he said, his voice hoarse. "The bridge." He grabbed the flight recorder, a reinforced orange box, from its cradle on the ruined bridge.
"Let's go."
They made it back to the mangy dog without further incident. As he powered up the ship and eased it away from the wreckage, Morlane's voice, tight with fury, crackled over the open pirate channel. "Find them. I want their ship. I want their head." Rex killed the comm receiver and jumped to a random set of coordinates, putting as much distance as he could between them and the Pirate Queen. The silence in the cockpit was a heavy, suffocating blanket. The adrenaline of the escape faded, leaving behind a stark and unsettling quiet. Rex piloted on autopilot, the starfield a cold, indifferent audience. The image of Kazali's terrifying ballet was burned into his retinas. He wasn't a warrior. He had never pretended to be. Now he was traveling with someone who was, by her very nature, one of the most dangerous beings he had ever encountered. Kazali stood from the co-pilot's chair and moved toward him. The cockpit, which had felt cozy just a day ago, now felt dangerously small. She reached a hand toward his shoulder, her long, gray fingers tipped with claws that could tear through plasteel. He flinched. It wasn't a conscious decision, it was a gut reaction, a primal twitch of an animal that knows it's in the presence of a predator. Her hand stopped in midair. It hung there for a moment before dropping to her side. The light in her amber eyes seemed to dim, the eternal fire banking to a low coal. She took a half step back, the first time he had ever seen her retreat from anything. "You fear me," she said. It wasn't a question, it was a statement of fact, delivered with a quiet, hollow finality. "No," Rex said quickly, the denial tasting like ash in his mouth. "No, I don't." "Your physiological response is undeniable," she stated, her voice losing its melodic quality, becoming flat and analytical. "Pupil dilation, increased heart rate, involuntary muscle contraction. Your body speaks the truth your words attempt to conceal." She looked down at her own hands, turning them over as if seeing them for the first time. "My combat function, the reason I was created. It is a source of distress for you." Guilt, hot and sharp, pierced through Rix's own fear. He saw the genuine hurt on her face, the confusion of someone who had done exactly what she was designed to do, protect him, only to be met with revulsion. "It's not you, Kazali," he tried, his voice strained. "It's a lot to take in." "I accept your apology, Rex Varelli," she said, her voice formal and distant. "But I do not yet understand how to alter your body's truth." She turned and walked out of the cockpit, her posture ramrod straight, leaving him alone with the hum of the ship and the heavy weight of his own reaction. The distance between them had become a chasm, dug not by an argument, but by a single, involuntary flinch. To escape the suffocating silence, Rex threw himself into the work. He set the flight recorder on the main console in the hold. The orange box was covered in Zika Corp logos and dire warnings about unauthorized tampering. Kazali sat at the small galley table, observing a datapad. She wasn't watching him, but he could feel her awareness of him. A cool, professional distance, where there had once been an intense, if unnerving, focus. The easy, bizarre companionship they'd begun to build felt like a distant memory. "Seraph, I need you to help me crack this," Rex said, his voice too loud in the quiet hold. "It's Zika Corp military-grade encryption." The holocat appeared, stretching languidly on top of the recorder. "That's the bad stuff. Nasty. Will require significant processing power. And possibly a sacrifice to the data demons." "We don't have any sacrifices," Rex said, connecting a data probe to the box. "Just get to work." He also opened a channel back to Grub. "The package is secured," he transmitted, keeping his voice low. Grott's twitchy face appeared on his wrist comm. "Fast work, Rexy. I knew you had it in ya. My buyer is frothing at the mouth. Send the data over." "Not so fast," Rex said. "I need your help with the decryption. The buyer wants what's inside, right? So help me open the box, as a sign of good faith." "He seeks a symbiotic partnership," Femus's voice drifted in. "A wise and prudent request." Fine, Grot grumbled. "But it'll cost you. My slicer diamonds ain't free." "Your buyer is a Zika Corp competitor. Stick it to the man, Grot. Think of it as a public service for that conduit deal they burned you on." There was a pause, then a nasty chuckle. "Okay, Rexy, you got me. Patching my demons into your ship's AI now. They play nice with cats, mostly." The decryption was a siege. As soon as Grubb's programs touched the recorder's firewalls, a silent alarm must have been triggered. A countdown timer appeared on Rex's screen. 60. "What's that?" Rex asked, his stomach clenching. "That's a trace, Rexy." Grot's voice crackled. "When that hits 0, Zika Corp knows exactly where you are. My demons are fighting their ice picks. It's a real digital bloodbath in there." Seraph's cat avatar hissed. its first standing on end as it batted its strings of hostile code flashing across the screen.
Its firewalls have firewalls, and they are angry.
The next hour was a frantic, tense battle. Rex rerouted power from non-essential systems to the main computer, the lights in the hold dimming. Kazali, seeing the urgency, was suddenly at his side, her earlier distance forgotten. Her long fingers flew across a secondary console, monitoring the mangy dog's energy signatures. "I am minimizing our EM output," she said, her voice clipped and professional. "It may buy us a few more moments before any local passive sensors can detect the power surge." With 3 minutes left on the clock, a final, brutal push from Grubbs Damon's, guided by a surprisingly elegant piece of code from Seraph, shattered the last layer of encryption. File directories spilled across the monitor. It wasn't just a flight log. It was everything. Schematics for a new generation of synaptic tether collars, research notes on Veilith psychology and pain thresholds, files detailing a latent telepathic ability in the species, labeled potential security risk/asset, and a shipping manifest. "Seraph, pull up the manifest destination," Rex commanded, his voice hoarse. A star chart appeared, a red circle glowing in a dead zone of the nebula, known as the Leith Abyss, a region so choked with radiation and gravimetric shear that no one ever went there. In the center of the circle was a single, massive structure. "And the cargo?" Rex's voice was grim. The holocat's ears drooped. It projected the key image into the center of the hold, a 3-dimensional schematic that rotated slowly in the air between Rex and Kazali. It was a bioengineering facility, a cloning factory. And inside, row upon row of stasis pods, hundreds of them, each one holding a Veilith. Her sisters. A label was attached to the schematic, cold and clinical. Batch 12, bioassets, prepared for Phase 1 deployment. An army of slaves. Kazali rose from her chair, her movements slow, almost trance-like. She approached the holographic image, her amber eyes wide with a horror so profound it seemed to suck the air out of the room. She reached out a trembling hand, her fingers passing through the image of a floating, sleeping Veilith. The horror on her face slowly, terrifyingly hardened. Her jaw clenched. Her hands curled into tight fists, claws extending with a soft snick. The grief in her eyes was eclipsed by a cold, burning fury. Rex's blood ran cold. He knew, with absolute certainty, what was coming next. Every self-preservation instinct he had screamed in one single deafening word. Run. "We sell this data," he said, his voice strained. "We sell it to Grubbs' buyer. We take the money and we disappear. This isn't our fight, Kazali." She turned to him. Her face was a mask of stone, but her voice was quiet, trembling with a terrible, unshakable resolve. "They are in chains. The same chains you broke for me." She took a step toward him. "My survival is secondary to their liberation. It is an unacceptable state. I will rectify it, or I will cease to function." The air punched from his lungs. In her stance, in the fire in her eyes, he saw a ghost. He saw Sari on that last, fatal job. He had wanted to cut and run. Sari had argued, her face flushed with the same righteous conviction. "We can't just leave them, Rex! It's not right!" He'd made the selfish call. He couldn't meet Kazali's gaze. He turned and stumbled back to the cockpit, his heart pounding a frantic, panicked rhythm against his ribs. He collapsed back into the pilot's chair, staring out at the uncaring stars. He could run. He was good at it. He pulled up the comms panel, his fingers hovering over the secure link to Grubbs' buyer. Just one transmission. One button press, and they'd be rich. And all of this would be someone else's problem. He heard a noise behind him and turned. Kazali was in the hold, not looking at him. She was methodically packing a small survival kit. A water resequencer, emergency rations, a med pack. She was going. With or without him, with or without the ship. He looked at her. This impossible, stubborn, magnificent creature, ready to face a fortress, alone. And he looked at his hand, hovering over the button that would be his escape. He saw Sari's face, disappointed. With a curse, he slapped the comms panel off and slammed his fist on the console. He was not that man anymore. He would not be. He walked back into the hold. Kazali looked up from the survival pack, her expression unreadable. "You're not going alone," he said, his voice rough. A flicker of surprise crossed her features. "You stated this was not your fight." "Yeah, well," he sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was wrong. But we're not going in there like soldiers. That's a suicide run." He pointed at the schematics still floating in the air. "That place is a vault, and we're gonna treat it like one." A slow, determined smile, one he hadn't used in years, spread across his face. "We are gonna be thieves. We're gonna pull off the biggest damn heist this sector has ever seen." For the first time since he had flinched away from her touch, a spark of light, a spark of hope returned to Kazali's eyes. "A heist," she repeated, testing the word. Her own lips curved slightly upward. "I find this plan acceptable." The next few hours were a flurry of activity. The galley table was covered in data slates and projections. It was a true collaboration. Rex brought the scoundrel's cunning, the improvisational flair of a man who'd survived by thinking 3 steps sideways of everyone else. Kazali brought a mind that dissected tactics with exacting detail, pointing out structural weaknesses in the facility, calculating patrol routes from the scant data they had, and identifying flaws in his wilder ideas. "Your plan to vent the primary coolant system is bold," she said, tapping at a projection of the station's plumbing. "However, it would also flash freeze the stasis pods, neutralizing the assets we are attempting to liberate." "Okay, bad idea," Rex conceded. "What if we create a diversion?" "A diversion of sufficient magnitude to draw the attention of a corporate black site's entire security force would require resources we do not possess," she countered logically. "Specifically, a fleet." Rex stared at her. An idea, a terrible, brilliant, insane idea, taking root in his mind. "You're right," he said slowly. "We do need a fleet." He took a deep breath, the taste of bile and pride rising in his throat. There was only one person in the nebula who hated the Zika Corp enough, was greedy enough, and commanded a large enough fleet to be the kind of distraction he needed. "Seraph," he said, his voice grim. "Open a secure, wide beam channel. Encrypt it with my old partner cipher, Delta 9. The holocat looked up from cleaning a holographic paw.
"That one is dusty, full of bad feelings. Are you sure?"
"Just do it." A moment later, Morlane's face appeared on the screen. She was not smiling. Her eyes were chips of ice. "You've got nerve, Rex." "I'm not calling to chat, Morlane," Rex said, his voice steady. He had to do this. For Kazali, for Sari, for himself. "I'm calling to pay a debt." Her expression flickered. "You don't have enough money in the galaxy to pay what you owe me." "It's not about money," he said. He took a breath. This was it. The confession he'd run from for 5 years. "It's about Sari. I'm calling to tell you what really happened." Morlane leaned forward, her eyes narrowing to slits. The silence was absolute. It wasn't bad luck, Rex began, the words tasting like rust. It wasn't a stray shot. It was me. We were on that corporate outpost in the Cygnus Rift. We found something we weren't supposed to. People. Dozens of them, held in a forced labor pen. Sorry, she wouldn't leave them. He couldn't look at the screen, staring instead at a scuff mark on his console. She said, "We can't just leave them, Rex. It's not right." He swallowed, the memory sharp and vivid. The sound of Sari's fierce whisper, the klaxons, the smell of burning circuits. I told her it was suicide, that we had no plan, no gear for a mass rescue. I told her we had to stick to the mission and get out. But she didn't listen. She was so damn stubborn. So good. She said if I wouldn't help, she'd do it herself. And she just went. His voice cracked, just for a second. I went after her, but it was a mess. No plan, just reacting. We were making it up as we went, and the whole place went on full alert. The security grid resequenced, trapped her on the far side of the main causeway. He finally looked up, meeting Morlane's icy gaze, forcing her to see the shame in his eyes. I was almost to her. I was right there. But the blast doors slammed down between us. I saw her face through the armored glass before the emergency shield snapped on. If I had just listened to her, if we'd made a real plan together instead of me trying to clean up the mess of her heroism, maybe she'd still be here. I was a coward, and my hesitation got your sister killed. The air in the cockpit was thick with his shame. Kazali stood silently behind him, a pillar of support. Morlane stared at him, her face a mask of stone. He expected her to curse him, to scream, to promise his death. Instead, when she spoke, her voice was a quiet, ragged whisper. I know. Rex blinked. What? I salvaged the flight recorder from that wreck myself, 6 months later, she said, her voice hollow. I heard the whole thing. Her plea, your refusal, the audio of her running off and you screaming her name. The last thing the recorder picked up was her trying to call my name through the comms as the life support failed. A single tear traced a path down her cheek, a crack in the icy facade. She wiped it away with an angry gesture. Why aren't you telling me this now, Rex? She asked, her voice regaining its edge. What do you want? A chance to make it right, or as right as I can, he said, laying it all out. He told her everything. The Veilith, the cloning facility in the Leith Abyss, the army of slaves Zika Corp was building. I have a plan to hit them, he finished. But, like Kazali said, we need a fleet. We need a distraction. Morlane was silent for a long time. You want me to risk my ships, my crew, on a suicide mission planned by the coward who got my sister killed? Yes, Rex said simply. And what's in it for me? Revenge, Rex said. And everything else. My plan will expose that station to the entire nebula. It'll be a feeding frenzy, but you'll be there first. You get first pick of Zika Corp R&D, their ships, their tech, a monopoly on the biggest salvage haul in a decade. He paused. And one more thing. I need you to rescue them. The Veilith, any that make it out. Get them clear of the chaos. In exchange, the salvage is all yours. No finder's fee. Morlane's eyes searched his, looking for the angle, the trick. She found none. Sari always did see the good in strays like you, she said, her voice laced with a bitter irony. She thought you could be better than you were. She leaned back. Fine. You will pay your debt to my sister by helping me burn these slavers to the ground. Give me the coordinates in your timetable. But Rex, if you fail, if your plan gets one of my people killed, I will collect the rest of what you owe me myself. And I will not be gentle. The channel closed. Rex slumped into his chair, emotionally drained. Kazali placed a hand on his shoulder. It was warm, solid. He didn't flinch. The night before the raid, the mangy dog drifted in a silent asteroid field, waiting. The tension was a living thing in the small ship. Sleep was impossible. Rex was in the cockpit when Kazali entered. He patted the co-pilot's chair. She sat, her presence a comfort. Thank you, she said softly, for what you did. With her. I owed her the truth, he said. The bond between you and this Morlane. It is complex, forged in grief. She reached out, her hand covering his on the center console. Her claws were retracted, her touch gentle. This time, he turned his hand over and laced his fingers with hers. Your feelings. They're yours, Kazali, he said, finally understanding. Not instincts, not programming. They're yours. I know that now. She leaned closer, her amber eyes luminous. The Anamkara may have opened the door. It may have pointed the way. But I am the one who chose to walk through it. He turned to face her, the space between them shrinking to nothing. He saw the sincerity in her eyes, the unwavering conviction. It was her. All her. He closed the distance. Their kiss wasn't gentle. It was a collision of desperation and relief, of fear and hope. It was the heat of her lips against his, the strength in the hands that came to cup his jaw, the raw, undeniable truth of their connection. It was a promise, made in the quiet before a storm, a pact to see the sun rise on the other side. When they finally broke apart, breathless, she rested her forehead against his. I will protect you, she whispered. I know, he whispered back, and I'll protect you. For the first time, it didn't feel like a lie. The infiltration was a knife's edge in the dark. Morlane's fleet was the hammer, smashing against the station's dorsal defenses in a glorious, chaotic display of pirate aggression. The mangy dog was the scalpel. Energy signatures are fluctuating, Kazali reported, her eyes glued to the sensor display. The plasma venting cycle for the secondary heat exchangers is about to begin. You will have a 4.6-second window to pass through the conduit. 4.6 seconds. No problem, Rex lied, his knuckles white on the controls. He angled the ship toward a massive glowing vent. The outer doors irised open, belching a wave of superheated plasma. Rex pushed the throttle, and the mangy dog shot forward, surfing the razor's edge of the dissipating energy wave. They were through. They docked in a silent maintenance bay. The plan was twofold. Rex had to get to the station's primary comms array to initiate a mass stasis pod wake-up sequence and open the hangar bay doors. Kazali had to get to the cloning bay's central core, the one place where she could act as a psychic amplifier for her sisters. They moved through the sterile white corridors. An automated voice echoed from hidden speakers. Unidentified biologicals detected. Security teams dispatched. They reached a junction. Comms are that way, Rex said, pointing down a long corridor. The cloning core is 2 levels down. We meet back at the ship. Understood, Kazali said. She paused, her amber eyes meeting his. Be safe, my chosen. You too, he said, his throat tight. And then they were running in opposite directions. Kazali reached the observation deck overlooking the cloning bay. The sight of her hundreds of slumbering sisters stole her breath. She found an access ladder and descended into the core itself, a massive chamber filled with humming machinery and the ambient psychic hum of hundreds of dormant Veilith minds. The calm, synthesized voice of the Overseer AI spoke, not from the speakers, but directly inside her head, a cold violation. It was using a resonance frequency keyed to the implant at the base of her spine. Subject KZL, welcome home. Your handler has been terminated. Re-imprinting sequence initiated. Command protocol reactivated. You are a weapon. You will obey. Agony, white hot and absolute, flared through her nervous system. It was the ghost of the caller, made real again. Her muscles locked, her body contorting. Meanwhile, Rex was fighting his own battle. 2 Zika Corp guards in sleek black armor pinned him down behind a bank of servers. He was outgunned, outmaneuvered. Back in the core, the AI's voice was relentless. A threat to the facility has been detected in Sector Gamma 7. You're chosen. He is an anomaly. Purge him. Obey. An image of Rex, pinned down and helpless, flooded her mind. The command was absolute. Neutralize the anomaly. She screamed, a sound of pure agony, fighting a war in her own soul. Then, through the psychic noise, she felt something else. A flicker of connection. Rex, thinking of her, trusting her. And beneath that, the faint, sleeping consciousness of her sisters. She wouldn't be a weapon. She would be a voice. She fought through the pain, focusing not on the AI, but on the dormant minds around her. She opened her mouth, and it wasn't a scream of pain that came out, but a single, pure, resonant note. A song. The song of sorrow. A lament for their stolen lives, their enslavement. It was a latent Veilith ability, a telepathic cry that Zika Corp had tried to suppress. The note grew, amplified by the hundreds of minds around her, building into a psychic wave that washed through the station. On the other side of the facility, Rex felt it. A sudden wave of profound grief and rage that wasn't his own. It momentarily stunned the guards, whose own latent psionic sensitivity was being overloaded. He seized the opportunity, firing a shot that ricocheted off the ceiling and hit the panel controlling the fire suppression system. The corridor filled with thick, disorienting foam. He scrambled past them and made it to the comms array. He slammed his hand on the master control, initiating the pod wake-up and opening the hangars. In the core, Kazali's song changed. The sorrow turned to fury. It became the scream of liberation. The psychic wave she unleashed was a weapon. It didn't just carry emotion, it carried data. The station's location, its crimes, its secrets, all embedded in the telepathic broadcast that now screamed across the entire Tartarus Nebula. The AI's control over her shattered. The sonic assault ceased. She had won. They fought their way back to the mangy dog through a station in utter pandemonium. Veilith, newly awakened and enraged, were tearing their way out of the cloning labs. Alarms blared as ships of every shape and size began jumping into the system, drawn by the psychic scream. They blasted out of the maintenance bay just as Morlane's fleet shifted in formation. Her sleek warships weren't just firing on the station anymore. They were creating a protective cordon, herding the streams of escaping Veilith life pods and shuttles toward a designated safe jump point. A private comm request pinged. It was Morlane. Her face was illuminated by explosions. "It's done," Rex said. "I see that," she said, a hint of something like awe in her voice. "My sensors are going haywire. What was that?" "That was the price of freedom," Rex said. She nodded slowly. "The debt is paid, Rex. Now get out of my sector, and don't come back." The channel closed. In the quiet of the cockpit, covered in grime and sweat, Rex and Kazali watched the distant fireworks as the station was torn apart by the arriving hordes. They had won. Later, the mangy dog was light years away. Rex was in his bunk, Kazali was curled up beside him, her head resting on his shoulder, her purr a low, steady, comforting rumble. "Where do we go now, my chosen?" she murmured. Rex looked at the star map projected on the ceiling. They were free. They were together. He smiled, a real, easy smile. "I have no idea," he said, kissing the top of her head. "But we'll figure it out together." A soft chime came from his wristcom, a message from Grub. He opened it. Grott's face appeared, looking more twitchy than usual.
"Rexy, good and bad news. The buyer is ecstatic. Says whatever you did was better than any data he could have imagined. The money's in your account. The bad news, Zika Corp is unhappy. They put a new bounty out. Priority 1. Retrieve alive."
Grott leaned closer.
"And they're asking some weird questions, Rexy. Not just about you. They want to know everything there is to know about the Anam Kara bond."
Rex closed the message, the thrill of their victory tempered by the cold chill of a new hunt. He looked down at Kazali, sleeping peacefully beside him. He wasn't afraid. He just held her a little tighter. The war was over. A new one had just begun.